Good morning, Art 2. We are going to begin our watercolor this week, and something that we're going to do together is we're going to create our color wheel, and then we're going to create a color chart, and we'll walk through the steps together. But let's first start with our color wheel. So remember, our primary colors are yellow, red, and blue. Our secondary colors are purple, green, and orange. So let's start with our first primary color. So you'll see my supplies here. I have my brush, I have paper towel, I have a cup of water, clean water. I have a plate here that I'm using to mix, but if you have this palette, you can always use this lid, rinse it off, and you can always use this to mix your colors with, okay? So I'm gonna get my brush wet first, and I'm gonna dip it into my red. And then what I'm gonna do, I think I have two pieces. So on this paper, you have two sides. This is a cold press watercolor paper, and it's cold pressed, which makes me think goosebumps, right? So it has those little bumps on them. So you wanna find the side that has more texture than the other. So with my red, I've dipped into my red. And I'm just gonna make a little circle, okay? I'm gonna rinse my brush out. And then I'm going to get yellow now. Sometimes you might have to just do a drop of water to get that ready to go. So now my yellow goes there. Again, I'm gonna wash my brush. And I'm gonna dip into the blue. And I'm going to do blue right there. Okay, so those are my primary colors. So now I need to add in my secondary colors. So we do have orange, green, and purple here, which you could use, but the goal of this is to really practice mixing our colors. So let's do orange first. So I have my red, and I'm gonna put it here on my plate. Then I'm gonna dip into my yellow. I'm gonna gently mix them together to get my orange. And then I'm gonna put a little dot right there of my orange. Now if you want, you can go ahead and do a red orange, which using the palette, the color you just mixed, maybe add just a little bit more red. And you can go ahead and do your red orange right there like that. So make it a little bit smaller in between. Then you can do the same thing with yellow orange. Let's add a little yellow to that. That's gonna be too much. I'm gonna add yellow orange right there. Oh, my brush is leaving dirty marks. Okay, so now let's move on to work between yellow and blue, which we know yellow and blue make green. So I'm gonna take my yellow, put it on my plate. I already have a little bit of green in here from that I mixed up last hour. But now I'm gonna just I just need very little blue because it's not gonna take much to make green. I'm gonna put that right there, okay? And again, while I'm at it, I can go ahead and add more yellow so I can get my yellow green and do a little dot right here in between. I'm gonna rinse out my brush. And as you can see, I already have a little bit of blue green mixed, but I'm gonna take blue a little bit of yellow, get my green, And I want a little bit more blue because you want it to be almost like a turquoise color for your blue-green. Okay, so now what does red and blue make? Purple. So let's mix those two colors. And you can see on my plate here, I have some already mixed up. I just need to add some water to it because it started to dry up. And let's see if that makes a good purple. I was really mixing a bunch of colors together today, so I might have to refresh it to get a true purple or true violet. So let me go ahead and put that there. And then in between those two, we're going to do a blue violet. So now I need to get more blue. Let's mix it a little bit. I'm going to do a dot right there. And then we need a red violet. So I need to add more red now. So I'll mix that right here. So it has a nice shade. Okay, and I'll put that dot there. So you're welcome to label these if you like, but you want to hold on to this because this is going to be your guide when we're doing our watercolor projects. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. Make sure it lays flat because so you can see I have some. The red was the first color I did and it's already soaked in, but these other ones that I've just done are still a little wet and need to dry. So you don't want to tilt it. So I'm going to set that aside. So now what we're going to work on is we're going to work on our color chart. What this is going to help with is helping us understand what colors to mix together to get the proper shade we want for our painting. So what I'm going to do, we need to first label our second piece of 4x4 watercolor paper. So let's do that really quick. So I'm going to have an R, O, Y, G, B, V, B, R, and B, L. Now I'm going to do the same thing going across. I'm going to have R, O, Y, G, B, V, BR, and BL. So as we're doing this, when you look, this is kind of like a graph you might create when you're in math. So when we go across and we come down, we have our true colors. So right here, we have our true red. This is our true orange. Then this is our red, orange. So the first thing I want you to do is let's go ahead and create our true colors. So we know we have our true red, and I'm just going to do a little dot right there like that. And if you like, you can go ahead and use the orange that's in the palette. So let's do a true orange. Okay. Now let's do a true yellow. And notice I'm rinsing every time I switch colors. Let's go ahead and do a true green. And the more water you have, the lighter the shade. The less water, the darker the shade. So there's our green. Let's rinse again. Now let's do our true blue. Rinse. Let's do our true purple. V for violet, but we all call it purple. Okay, that's kind of crazy. Now let's do our brown, and we can utilize our palette brown, but I'll show you here in a bit how we're going to mix brown. We have brown, and let's go ahead and get black, and we'll use our palette black for that. Okay, and again, the more water, the lighter color, the less water, the darker. Okay? So these are our true colors. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fill in. So you have red, orange. So we need to put a dot of red, orange. When we go to yellow, yellow and red make orange, and then you're gonna have yellow-orange. Green and red, green and orange, and green and yellow. So we're just gonna go down the chart and fill it in. It's gonna be a little time consuming, but this is gonna be a helpful guide, especially once you get down here to when you start adding complementary colors or you start adding browns and blacks to different shades, and you'll see the difference in the neutrals that you might find helpful when you're working on your painting. So I already have a red-orange mix, so I'm gonna utilize that. Yeah, my brush too wet. Let's add. So I'm just gonna do a quick little dot right there for my red-orange. I'm gonna move down to my yellow, which yellow and red make orange. So again, that's gonna be a true orange. Ooh, that's nice and bright. I'm gonna add that there too. Now let's mix orange and yellow. So I already have that here on my plate from when I mixed colors for my color wheel. So I'm gonna utilize that. Let's see if it's bright enough to appear. Yeah. Okay. Looks a little dull there, but maybe once it dries, it'll be okay. Now let's go down to green. So we need to mix green and red. Hold on. I want to brighten up my orange yellow. It looks pretty dull. Let me brighten that up a little bit. There you go, that's better. Okay, so let's go to green, red. So I already have, well, let me get green on my plate here. So I have some green there. So look what happens when I mix red with it. I end up almost with like a grayish color. So when you mix complementary colors, you get a neutral, almost like a brown. So red and green make this sludge color. So now, let's go ahead and mix our green and orange. So green and orange. I have orange on my plate here somewhere. Let me see. Let's get this. We're gonna mix, and again, it's gonna be kind of a sludge color because they're on the color wheel opposite of each other. So let's do that there. And then let's do green and yellow. So you're gonna end up with yellow-green. So let's get yellow. I need to clean my plate because it's starting to get too full. I'm gonna mix those two together. And that's gonna be a nice fresh look because they're next door to each other on the color wheel. And so you can see the color that you get there. So let's move on down to blue. So we need to mix red and blue, which what do you get when you mix red and blue? You get purple. So if you want, you can go ahead and just put a dot of purple right there because we know that's what we get when we mix red and blue. But what do we get when we mix orange and blue? And remember, on our color wheel, they are opposite from each other. So when I say opposite from each other, they're directly across. So I have blue here and orange, complementary colors. Green and red, complementary colors. So for me, I always think red and green, Christmas, orange and yellow, Illini. So let's go ahead and mix our orange and blue, our Illini colors. So if I have my orange, put my orange here, I'm running out of clean space on my plate. Now I'm gonna add in some blue. I'm gonna mix those colors together. And it's gonna be similar to what happened when we mixed green and red together. They're complementary colors. So you get kind of a gray shade. And now let's mix yellow and blue together. What does yellow and blue make when you mix those together? get green, right? So you can go ahead and do a true green if you like. Oh, yeah. Yellow and blue make green. And then what happens when you mix blue and green together? Well, we've already mixed that color and have almost like a turquoise color, right? So let's go ahead and get that color mixed, blue and green. And it is like a turquoise. So creating this, you can see the different shades and different levels you get when you create this. So now let's move down to violet, or as we call it, purple. So red and violet is red violet, which I already have that mixed here. Might add a little bit more red. So red violet. Let's put a little dot right there. So now we need orange and purple. So let's find our orange. Find a clean spot on my plate. And let me go ahead and use our palette purple. And let's see what we get. So just be careful because the darker colors tend to be more dominant. And again, this kind of muddies it. So it's gonna be a little dark. Let me add a little bit more orange to it. So you can see that tone. And there's your orange violet. Now let's do yellow violet. And again, they are across from each other on the color wheel. So we have our purple. That's your brush, and let's go and get yellow. And so when you mix those two, you're gonna get a brown. Yellow and purple make a neutral color, a brown color. Now let's mix green and purple. So you can use the palette green. I'll find a little clean spot here on my plate. And let's mix purple with it. So again, it's going to be kind of dark. Green and purple. It's right there. And now we need to mix blue and purple, which remember we did that on our color wheel because they are neighbors on the color wheel. And so I'm going to use a palette purple. And I'm going to add some blue. And it's going to give you a nice violet blue. Okay, and then again, this is our true purple. So now we're going to go down to brown, our lovely brown shade. So let me clean off a spot here on my plate. And this plate here is just something I picked up from the dollar store. It's like $1 for a plate, or if your mom or somebody has an old plate they're not using. The nice thing is it washes right off. So, because it is just watercolor. Okay, so let's start with a clean plate here, a clean slate. So we are going to mix brown and red. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get brown on my plate. I'm just going to start there with a little bit. Rinse your brush. Let's dip into the red and let's see what happens. So it just makes it look a little dusty. Okay, now let's do the same thing with orange. So let's get a little dot of brown. Rinse our brush. Now let's just go ahead and use the palette orange and let's mix it and see what we get. Again, a little dusty. Just gives you a dull color. So adding brown to the true color just creates a dull color for that hue that you're wanting to use. Okay, so let's add some yellow here. And this almost gives it an orange yellow, but okay. Let's do the same thing with green. So again, we'll take brown, do a little dot, rinse your brush. And when your water gets to get really mucky like this, it's probably a good idea to change it out so you have fresh, clean water. So let's go ahead and mix in some brown. I might want just a smidge more. There we go. So green and brown. Again, it dulls the color so it's not as bright and bold. Okay, now let's move on to blue. So again, let's get a little bit of the brown, a little dot, rinse your brush, dip into the blue, and let's mix that. I want a little bit more blue. There we go. Blue. Okay, now, again, let's do the same thing. A little bit of brown. Rinse your brush. And let's add in some purple now. So now we got a dusty purple. So now our last row is black. So you want to be very careful when you use black because it's going to dominate and it's going to really take over. So what I would do is let's start with the actual color. So let's start with red. So we have our true red. And what I would do is I would go ahead and make just a puddle of black on your plate. So as you're adding black to the colors, you can really control it better if it's on your plate. So I'm just going to take a very little bit and mix it. So you want to start slow so that way black doesn't dominate too much. Okay, so there's our red, black. And again, it takes out the intensity of the true color and creates a dull shade. So again, here's our orange. And I'm just going to dip and slowly add in black. So there's our orange. Rinse. Now let's try with yellow. Okay. A little puddle there, and I'm just going to dip in and add a little bit at a time. Because we don't want black to take over, we just want it to dull the color. Okay. Now we need green. Add some green, and let's pull in some black now. Oops, see, I added too much. So let me rinse my brush. I'm gonna add in some more green. There we go. I got green there. Now let's do the same thing, but with blue. Let's pull in the black. And again, our goal is to dull the color. Okay, we've got 2 more shades to go. So now let's add purple. And now we need to add brown and black together. So let's see what we get when we do that. There we have it. This is going to be a color chart that's going to be very helpful when we are working on our watercolor projects. So we're going to do a few watercolor projects. Remember to keep in mind a subject matter that you would want to paint, whether it be your animal, a landscape, a sunset. So start researching some watercolor ideas of what subject matter you would like to paint. And this is going to be one of your guides. So you're going to have your color wheel and your color chart. So make sure you get these done. Post a picture of them onto your Google Slides portfolio, because this will be one of your grades for your project for this watercolor unit. Any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Supplies are available if you need them at the high school office. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.